Yeah, so the topic that has been given to me today is some lessons learned from the confession of children, specifically. So I've put together a list of 10 lessons that I've learned. But the very first thing I wanted to sort of share with you is the question of what is the goal of confession. And naturally, when we speak about confession, we often think about sins, and that confession primarily is for the forgiveness of sin. And of course, that is true. But that is not what is primary for children. For children, confession is not primarily about forgiveness of sin. It's about establishing a lifelong fatherhood relationship, a very powerful relationship. And the problem that happens is the approach in the early years to confession, if it's done in the wrong way, can lose that fatherhood relationship. Because naturally, people are not comfortable speaking and exposing negative things about themselves. That is hard for adults. It's hard for adults to sit in confession and talk about things they struggle with. So imagine how hard it is for children. And so confession for children, and I mean children from little children that are 3, 4, all the way up to end of year 12, when I speak about children. That whole period, really the focus of confession is establishing a relationship with the child that the spiritual father is a presence in their life that can influence them in the right direction. And of course, confessing sins comes naturally throughout that process. But what's important is how we set that up. The initial introduction to it. So the most common mistake that we can make as parents is when our children do something wrong. You have to go see Abuna. You have to go talk to Abuna now because you did something wrong. And so the approach of the parents and the approach of Abuna needs to be working together in a way that makes confession for them to be a positive experience, not something that they are afraid of. Okay? I still remember my first confession with Abu Yaoub, and I was 8 years old. I remember where it was. It was in the altar in there. I remember what I said. I remember what he said back to me. This was my first confession, I don't know, 35 years ago. That's how powerful that interaction with Abuna is. And the reason I remember it is because I went so fearful to sit in front of a priest and to tell him my mistake. My mistake was that I had a fight with my brother. And so I was 8 years old, I went to Abuna and I sat in front of him and I said, Abuna, I had a fight with my brother. And he said to me, is your brother older than you? I said, yeah. He said, is he bigger than you? I said, yeah. He said, is he stronger than you? I said, yeah. He said, so if you have a fight, who's more likely to win the fight? I said, my brother. So he said, so it's not smart to fight with someone that you're probably going to lose against. And he had a laugh. And that was it. So my first introduction to confession was this wise priest who made me feel like it was so easy to sit and to talk with him. Yeah. So the main starting point with the children is to let them feel that this is a pleasant, happy relationship that you'll have for all of your life. You know? And the way we introduce that to our children is really important. So what have I learned along the way? The first one, which is I've just mentioned, which is that the approach to confession needs to be positive. And it's hard to recover from that mistake. If the initial introduction is go and say your sins and your mistakes, and it's scary and they don't like it, and if that process doesn't go well, it's hard to recover from that. The second lesson I've learned is that sometimes we use Abuna in the wrong way. We use Abuna as a weapon to get what we want for our children. We have to be very wise in the way we use Abuna, because the way we use the priest can strengthen the relationship with your child or can scar it. I'll give you an example. A mother came once with her daughter, and they had just had a fight. She wanted to go to a party that she was invited to from her school, and her mum was adamant they're not going to this party. And they're fighting about this. So the mother brought her to my office, sat her down. Abuna, she wants to go to a party. The party's of a girl from school, and there's going to be bad things there, and there's going to be dancing, and there's going to be music, and there's going to be alcohol. Should she go to the party? What do I say to that? I said, it sounds like your mum's wise and maybe you shouldn't go to the party. The girl stood up, walked out, and slammed the door behind her. I never saw her again for confession. She never came back. So the way that we come to Abuna or use Abuna can actually be a hindrance. Yeah? But if the mother had said to her, look, I've given you my opinion, why don't you go and sit with Abuna and talk to him about it yourself? It would have been a very different outcome. Yeah? So the way we use Abuna is very important. Next lesson is observe if the child has made a good connection with the priest. If the child has not made a good, strong connection, it's okay to encourage them to change confession fathers. Because every priest has their personality, and every priest has their strengths. And so if you're finding that your child is not connecting with the confession father, is reluctant to go, doesn't want to go, is not establishing that good, strong fatherhood relationship, it's okay to change confession fathers. And you play to their strengths. For example, if a child is very academic, then Abuni Aub would be a great combo. You know, they would connect and they would, plan and talk about academics. And if your child is into soccer, for example, Abuna Anthony was nearly a professional soccer player. So you can find the priest that has the highest chance of connecting with your child. And if it's not happening, then it's okay to tell them or to suggest to them, do you want to see a different Abuna? That's totally okay. Because the goal is I want to connect them to a priest. For that priest to be a good influence in their life, a good guide, a father, a shepherd for them all of their life. That's our goal. Not so that they confess their sins, not so that you can use a Buddha anyway. It's so that they can establish a long-lasting relationship and friendship. I guess a big thing that I've learned from children is that there is a direct correlation between stability of a child and the stability of the home. A very strong connection and a very strong correlation. When the home is filled with love and with peace and with unity, the children grow up to be strong and stable. And often I would pick it out just from sitting with a child for a few minutes. You can tell. And I would ask them, is everything at home okay? And then they would say, no. You can tell straight away. There is a strong correlation. One time I was listening to a sermon by Abuna Dawood Lamay, and he was saying that when parents fight, children blame themselves. And that's part of the way, part of the reason that they lose confidence in themselves, they close in on themselves, they don't perform, they struggle, they feel less about themselves. When I heard that from Abuna Dawood, I thought, I don't know if I totally agree with that. Like, if parents are fighting, why would a child blame themselves? Like, the parents are fighting, khalas, like, let them have fun. Why would that affect me as a child? Why would I blame myself? But soon after that, a child came to me and was saying that my parents are always fighting. So I decided to test out Abuna Dawood Lamay's theory. I said, do you ever blame yourself for that? He said, of course. I said, why? Of course. He said, because most of the time they fight about things to do with me. He didn't do his homework, he did his homework, didn't do his assignment. Why'd you let him do this? Why are you letting him do that? It's your fault. So that actually a lot of the fighting, a lot of the disunity is about the children. So how do the children perceive that? It's my fault. I'm the problem here. And if they're the problem, what's that do to your personality? What's that do to your confidence? So what we do in the home has massive impact. And I think that's probably one of the most things I've learned throughout hearing the confessions of children. When the home is filled with love, peace, the child is strong, is confident, is peaceful, successful, and the opposite takes place too. The next thing I've learned is that technology is destroying our children. I guess we all know that, but technology has consumed our children and has caused them all sorts of challenges in their life. No one is immune from this plague of technology. And the quantity of time they're spending, what they are exposed to, the interactions, and things that we don't even totally comprehend because we didn't grow up with it ourselves. But what they are being exposed to online is devastating to them. It is destroying them. And so I think as parents, we have to be extremely cautious of what our children are doing online and how much time they're spending on their devices. It's not just about applying a filter, but it's about being very much aware and present of what they are doing and engaged with. And then if we're finding that it's becoming a problem, we need to be creative in our solutions. How do we get them off these things? What other activities can we create for them? What hobbies, what opportunities can we create for them to engage them in something else So they are not just obsessed with filling their time with these things. Another thing that I've learned is that children replicate their parents' behaviors. If we want our children to approach the church and to approach confession in a certain way, the best thing we can do is do that ourselves. They replicate it. So if they see us, for example, going to confession regularly, they see us seeking the advice of Abuna, then that's how they will grow to be. I find that they are very similar in what they do to their parents. Even sometimes when we visit a home, like let's say we visit a home for Andil, and the parent has a tradition that they cook a meal. When we go to visit their kids that have grown up, you find they're replicating the same thing. We go do Andil, they cook a meal. Another family, you go do an Andil, they give you an envelope at the end with a donation. You go visit their children, and now with their own homes, you do an Andil, they give an envelope as a donation. So you see over time that the children replicate the spiritual behavior of their parents. When I was dating my wife, I had this idea for her birthday that I would fly her to Gold Coast. We're not married yet, okay? I would fly her to Gold Coast, we'd fly together. We'd spend the day, and then we'll come back, same day. Okay? Then I thought, I should check with her parents first. And maybe her parents would be comfortable with that. We're not sleeping there, but just the idea that we're on a plane, I don't know, maybe the parents wouldn't like it. So I went to her parents. It was a surprise idea, so she didn't know. So I went to her parents. I said, Uncle, Tant, I'm thinking of an idea to surprise Gina. I'm going to fly her to Gold Coast. We'll spend the day, and we're going to come back same day. Is that okay? And then they're like, thinking. Her dad's like, متعاضوا هنا في سيدني وخلاص لا لازم Gold Coast ومش Gold Coast يعني إيه الموضوع. I'm like, uncle, like a nice, like a surprise, something nice. لازم تعمل لها surprise هنا وماله في سيدني فيش surprises هنا. Okay, this is not going well. All right, okay. And then her mum said, طب اسأل أبو نعوب. I'm like, I'm sure Abu Niyub doesn't really care, like, you know. She's like, نسأل أبو نعوب. أنا أكلم أبو نعوب نسأل أبو نعوب. I go, no, Tant, like, it's embarrassing. I don't call Abu Niyub and say Abu Niyub can't take her to Gold Coast. I go, no, Tant, don't worry about it. She's like, أكلم أبو نعوب. نسأل أبو نعوب. And I'm like, actually, let's just cancel the idea. I don't want to go to Gold Coast. Like, I don't worry about this whole thing. Like, I'm all good. Or we'll just like do something here. It's all good. All right, bye. Now, with my wife, any big decision in our life, she'll say, "Did you ask Abu Niyub? Did you ask Abu Niyub?" So where did she learn that from? From her mum. Yeah. So we replicate what our parents do. And so if we want our children to connect to the church, to connect to God, to connect to Abuna, then we need to demonstrate that to them. Let's all go as a family to confession. I'm going to go see my confession father, and you can see your confession father. And I'm making a big decision in my life. I'm going to call Abuna and ask him about that big decision in my life. Why? Because I want my children to do that. I want my children to rely on going to see a priest. But if I am the kind of person that doesn't involve Abuna in my decisions, or doesn't seek the blessing of the church, or hardly goes and sees him, well, how are my children meant to see that? They won't see it. But to allow them that opportunity, we need to show them so that they can then in their own life replicate it. We can take the chance if our children are making a decision about a subject, about a team in sports. Have you asked Abuna? Have you sought his blessing? You know. So all of these little things are laying the foundations for them to establish that long-term relationship with the priest. I've learned that children thrive when they are given something to do, a task to do, and are invited to report back. So I want you to read the Bible every day, and I want you to highlight one verse, and then I want you to do the introduction period of the Agbeya, and I want you to do this much study. I want you to do one kind thing to your sister. I want you to write this down and message me at the end of the week and tell me how that went. And so that kind of back and forth, giving them tasks to do and then reporting back, maintains that connection, not just in the session with the Buna, but throughout the month. That they are working on something and they are reporting back to Buna. So after your children go and see a priest, it's good to always ask them, how was it? What did Buna ask you to do? What did he give you? You know, what did you talk about? Because that way you can follow up with them throughout the month. Oh, don't forget, remember what Buna asked you to do? Did you do it? You know? So that kind of follow-up is also helpful. I've learned that children are very moldable when they are young, and it's a small window of opportunity. They are like sponges, and with the spiritual life it's the same. So it's a small window of opportunity that we have to implant in them the love for God and the love for the church. And as they get a bit older, it becomes harder. So what we have molded in the early years, we will be able to see its benefits later on. So take the chance now. The younger, the better. That they can be, their spirituality, their love for God and the church can be formed early on in their life. Sometimes in confession, the kids will come with a phone and their phone rings in the confession. And I usually say to them, answer the phone. And they'll say, oh, it's just my mum or it's just my dad. Or usually the parents trying to find them where they are in the church. I say, no, answer them. Tell them where you are. So the kids will be like, hello. And I can always hear the parent because it's a quiet room. Fina, Kamina. And like, Mom, I'm in confession. Okay. Now, I always hear back what the parent says. Some parents say, oh, sorry, Amina. Taib, okay, take your time, Habibi. Take your time. I will see you when you come down. You know, and you're like, okay, this parent has really made them feel that confession is something that is important in their life. Oh, okay, stay. Don't worry. I'll call you later. Other parents sometimes say, فينك يا مينا؟ Mom, I'm in confession. طب يلا أنا مستنيينك يا معلم وأنا إن شاء الله حبيبي I'm like, oh my God. What a disaster. It's like, what are you doing wasting our time? We need to go. How can we do that? If we want to teach them that something is important, it is the most sacred thing in the world. We'll find Abuna's busy. We'll go to him. We'll call him. We'll make an appointment. We'll make it to be something that is sacred. Because the way that we approach it with our children, that's how seriously they will take it. But if for us it's anything, you have to just hurry up, then they won't take it to be a serious encounter. Finally, I've also learned that parents have a role to help Abuna connect with their children. Sometimes parents give us information that is helpful, especially when it comes to things that the children are interested in, because that helps Abuna to connect. I had one parent say that I'm sending my child to you. Just so you know, he loves history. He's really into history. He was all about history. Like you would think, oh, like why would Abuna care about that? But for me, that was amazing, because then I took with me a book on church history. And so as I'm talking to him, I'm saying, so what do you like to read about? He says, history. I said, I've got something you'll love. I have this book about the history of the Coptic church. And his eyes lit up. And he took the book and he read the book and he was happy with the book. I was able to connect, not because I was clever, but because I got inside information from the parents. So there's nothing wrong if you're sending your child to a priest to message Abuna ahead of time. These are the things he likes or she likes. These are her struggles that I'm seeing that maybe it would be helpful for you to know about. So work with Abuna so that Abuna is able to connect and target. And sometimes a parent will say, oh, she's coming to see you, and just so you know, she just got a certificate at school and a top performer in whatever. And then the daughter comes. And I'll say, excuse me, a little birdie told me you just got a certificate as a top performer. Are you serious? And I'll have a gift ready for her to congratulate her on that performance. How would I have that ready? Unless the parent had told me. So, work with Abuna. In the Coptic Church, we are so blessed on many levels, but one of the greatest blessings of the Coptic Church is the fatherhood of the priest. The sacrament of confession is the best and most sacred space for somebody to experience the fatherhood of a priest, and throughout their whole life becomes for them a guide. Children, when they're young, they take guidance from their parents. As they get a bit older, they no longer want guidance from their parents. They take guidance from friends, which may not always be a good thing, or from a servant, or from Abuna. And so the day will come where we will need Abuna to be involved, because they won't take our advice as much anymore. But if we've set the right foundation while they were young, then when it comes time that we need someone to guide them, Abuna is ready to go. The groundwork's been done. So that's some of the things that I've learned along the way. But please feel free to, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about, please let me know. And if not, thank you so much for having me with you. Oh, yep, one question. Yes, I think so. I think to encourage them to go to Abuna for any advice in life, even if it's an area that he doesn't know, at least go for him to pray for you. It's a big decision. Go for a blessing, for example, any decision to do with school, for example, subject selections. I have a problem with a friend. Go and go talk to Abuna and see what he has to say about that. A teacher is picking on me. Go and talk to Abuna and see what Abuna has to say about that. I don't know if I should join this soccer team or if I should be focused on my studies. It's a big decision. Why don't we go talk to Abuna about this decision and see what he says about it, or to at least pray for you about it. Yeah. So we're teaching them from a young age, even if we know what to say to them. Even if we have the right advice for our children, which you always would, but to just slip in, why don't we give Abuna a call and see what he has to say? You know what Abuna's going to say. It'll always be aligned to your opinion. But it's teaching the children this concept that there is a father in my life that I can always go to. And his advice is powerful, is meaningful. Yeah? Whatever he says to us, we'll take it as from God. I think this is a good thing to instill in our children. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I think first of all, we shouldn't be focused on the sins. Again, I keep saying that. I think that the focus on sin and forgiveness of sin is something that is a natural deterrent because it's just uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. So I think whenever we speak about it in the sense of guidance, a spiritual coach, like you have a coach in sport, you have a spiritual coach that will see how you're tracking and give you tips on how to get closer to God and how to grow and things like that. But if we're finding that our children are a little bit indifferent, not interested, I would tell Abuna that. I would tell their confession father, he doesn't want to come to see you. He's not excited, he's not interested, he's not whatever. Now that, of course, you might think that would offend Abuna, but I think it's good because Abuna may need to change his strategy and finding a way to connect. So that information, I think, is also helpful to the priest to perhaps take a different way with that person. And if it still not working, then like I said, we can suggest changing. Maybe their connection didn't take place with a particular priest. It's okay to change. So I'll keep working on it in different ways. It's extremely rare. It's extremely rare that a priest would need to give advice against a parent. And if it came to that, then Abuna would be very wise in how he would get them talking to each other. So, maybe he would say, okay, have you tried telling your parents this perspective and you communicate in this way? And so it would never come to a point where a priest would say, no, don't listen to your parents, do it this. But sometimes Abuna can help that child communicate what he's trying to communicate to their parents. So if they're, for example, trying to make a decision, the parents want something specific and he's saying, they don't understand me and they don't know what I want and they think they're right and none. So then we can help them frame how to go back and communicate that to come to a decision together, kind of thing. So I wouldn't have to worry about anything like that. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah, so of course, and the priest has a massive role. Like I told you, my first confession with the Buni Aoub, he made it so pleasant for me, So I think that the priest has a massive role. I think at St. Mark's Church, we are so blessed that you'll find that all of the priests at St. Mark's Church are very clever at connecting with all kinds of people. And the beauty is that we have a wide range of priests with different interests and different talents. And so, like I said, if one is not connecting, not because he's not clever, but because maybe the interests don't particularly align, then we can... So, for example, if I have someone come confessing with me, and they are very academic, and I would always tell them, it's okay to come and confess with me, but I want you to go to Buni Aoub to have an academic plan with him. Sometimes people go to Buni Aoub and say, they want to confess with Abuna Yob, and he'll say, okay, I'll be with you academically, but I want you to go to Abuna David spiritually, for example. So we together are able to use each other's strengths in a way that complements one another. But I think we are blessed that all the fathers are very much switched on in how to connect to their children. Yeah. 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 No, look, I do a couple of things. First of all is I tell Abuna, she's coming to see you next week, and just so you're aware, she has been reluctant. She's not been wanting to go. Just that one fact. So that way, like if I got a message like that, first of all, I would feel bad, oh man, I've stuffed up. I would feel that. But I would then think, all right, how do I get this person back on track? What do I need to do? And then you start to think and plan and think, what can I do to connect this person back again? So I think that information is valuable for the priest. Secondly, I think it is good to set up regular time. So yeah, we know that we should be seeing Abuna, let's say maybe once a month is a bit too frequent. Like it comes around very fast, the month, and so the kid's like, oh, just when? Like, what am I going to do? Let's say once every 2 months. Let's call it once every 2. Once every 2 months, it's important that we go and sit with Abuna. And I'm going to go too. And so let's go. Not you have to go, but that's what we have to. That's what is good for us to do. And so I think setting up a routine for our children and reminding them and organizing it for them is a good thing to do. Yes, the question is, can a priest ever give information to a parent with insight into their children? I guess it's rare. I think we try to be quite serious about that privacy. Only if the priest found that someone was in particular serious danger and he could give the information in a way that doesn't reveal the mistake of that person. I'll give you a trick I played once. There was a girl and she was dating a boy. And I wanted her parents to be more vigilant, but I didn't know how to get them to be more vigilant without telling them that your daughter's dating a boy. So I attended an event where this girl was there and her parents were there. And so in front of her parents, I told the girl, let's go have a coffee together. She was a high school girl. And then I said, is that okay if we go have a coffee together? Her parents said, yeah, of course. So we went to the cafe next and we spent 45 minutes. And then she went back. So I knew that her parents are going to think, what's going on? Why is Abuna sitting with her for 45 minutes? And they got the message. After that, they interrogated her. Why did he sit with you? What's going on? Tell us everything. What's happening? And they uncovered everything. So sometimes there's ways that Abuna would never reveal something, but can find ways to bring a parent's attention to being more vigilant. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think the mistake in that particular example was the parent is trying to achieve an outcome and using abuna as the weapon to get what they want. I think that's the mistake. But if it's done in a way that, look, we're arguing about this, you're not convinced, when we are in a situation like this, it is good to go and seek advice from the priest. So you go. I can drop you off if you like. So I think if a child refused, then we wouldn't take them by force to abuna, because that will scar them. So then the idea of using abuna in that situation, maybe we let that one go. We suggest it, we invite them to do it, we can organize it for you, we can take you to abuna, but if they're like, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to, then we'd probably just drop it. So I think we just have to be a point to be mindful of, not to damage that relationship. That relationship is like gold. It's like you've discovered gold. If you've established your child to have a good relationship with the priest, it's like gold. You can't, you don't want to stuff that up. You want it to stay good. You know, I had one father recently called me. I'm in the car outside والواد جوه البيت ومش عايز يطلع. كلمه على التليفون وقول له يطلع ويحترم أبوه. I'm like, you want me to call your son and tell him to come out of the house because you're waiting in the car? He goes, oh. I said, I can do that, but he won't like me anymore. You know, and I refuse to do that, but sometimes your parents are pressuring you to do something. كلمه. But if I كلمه now, he will know that you just spoke to me, and that's going to. So we just have to be careful in what we ask priests to do. We want to maintain that. Yeah.
Can you make the rest of the question after the meeting, because just
Time.
the time we have to.
Thank you so much.